Spider-Man is considered one of the greatest comic book characters of all time, and it's really not that hard to understand why. Peter Parker has remained consistent for Marvel over the years, and while there have certainly been some dark periods for the character of the stories being told, it's hard not to find a fan that doesn't love the Wallcrawler. Spider-Man's big debut in 2002 was nothing short of groundbreaking, and Spider-Man 2 is still considered one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. So here you will find just 10 things you may not know about the Amazing Spider-Man. But before we get started, we publish new videos twice a week, so hit that subscribe button for more great content. He was almost the Fly. When Stan Lee was tasked with creating a new superhero to follow in the footsteps of the Fantastic Four, who were extremely popular at the time, he thought up Marvel's next hit after seeing a fly on the wall. According to the legendary comic book writer, that got him to thinking about a hero who could stick to walls. And Fly Man and Insect Man were some of his ideas before Spider-Man. He was never really that much of a nerd. One of the biggest complaints about both of the Spider-Man's big screen origin stories from the fans is the fact that he wasn't portrayed as being anywhere near a nerd, like he was in the comic books. They seem to forget, though, that while he started off as a wallflower, Peter Parker received a massive confidence boost after being granted his amazing powers. He had a girlfriend by issue 7, ditched his glasses, and beat up a school bully by issue 8. He spent his college years being fought over by the beautiful Mary Jane Watson and Gwen Stacy. Long story short, Spidey may be a nerd, but not as much as you think. His body was stolen by Doc Ock. Another controversial story featuring Doc Ock switching minds with Spider-Man, leaving Peter to die in Otto's broken body. A fragment of the original Spidey's mind remained within his own, but the status quo would not return to normal for some time. During that period, Doc Ock murdered villains, considered seducing Mary Jane, but bizarrely, pretty much no one noticed that their friend was acting completely different. And while the Superior Spider-Man had his fans, most were very relieved when Peter was once again given his body. He has his way with the ladies. Peter Parker has suffered many tragedies during his time as Spider-Man, but at least he's found comfort with plenty of beautiful women. Betty Bratt, Liz Allen, Gwen Stacy, and Mary Jane Watson have all been involved with Peter over the years, while the Black Cat is someone he was also hooking up with on a casual basis. There have been plenty of others too. Carly Cooper and Deborah Whitman, for example, and even Miss Marvel considered dating him at one point. Peter Parker is a genius. Peter Parker was always a science whiz, but he spent most of his comic book life unemployed or working for the Daily Bugle as a photographer. Spider-Man would often come up with clever ways of defeating his villains, but it wasn't until he started working for Horizon Labs that Peter was able to really let his genius level shine. He was a member of the Fantastic Four. Although they were working under the name the Future Foundation at the time, Spidey was a part of the Fantastic Four at one stage. Following the tragic death of the Human Torch, the remaining members gathered at a reading of the will to try and reunite the team. What better to replace the group's wisecracking, charismatic hero than with another? He once worked as a high school science teacher. Considered one of the best periods in Peter Parker's comic book life by fans, he spent quite a few years serving as a high school science teacher. This opened the door for a ton of new storytelling possibilities, and Spider-Man was often seen doing his best to help his students in and out of the classroom. Unfortunately, revealing his identity during the Civil War brought his chosen career path to an abrupt end, and it has been something they haven't touched on since. His web fluid only lasts an hour. Just like in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, Peter Parker crafted some web shooters for himself as a teenager in order to get around New York City as quickly as possible by swinging from building to building. However, his webbing dissolves after an hour or so. That changed when Spider-Man used organic webbing for a time, but the reason for it not lasting is actually a lot more clever than just keeping the city tidy. Stan Lee created this in order to avoid Peter Parker from being able to sell his formula, thus getting rich off his invention. He gets those photos of himself as Spider-Man a certain way. During his teen years, Peter Parker earned money by taking photos of himself as Spider-Man. However, how exactly did he manage to get such great shots just from webbing his camera to a wall and setting the timer? A recent story revealed that the system wasn't quite as simple as that. Instead, Peter put a sensor in his costume which would make his camera take a few shots each time he passed in front of the lens. His parents worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. Fans have always known that Peter Parker was an orphan, but it was revealed in the late 60s that there were more to his parents than meets the eye. Richard and Mary Parker were revealed to be government agents, serving as heroes long before their son suited up as Spider-Man. Fondly enough, though, the duo were also responsible for the first team-up between Spidey and Wolverine. A pregnant Mary and her husband actually saved Wolverine during one of his missions, but they were later killed by the Red Skull after their son was born. Did you enjoy this list? What did you think of it? What are some of the things that you know about Spider-Man that maybe we didn't talk about? Comment in the section below, and don't forget to subscribe for more great content.